Julia took a final grassy step to overlook the seaside steep. An unhindered breeze blew through the cold evening. She was a few dozen paces from the manor where she had spent half of her short life, and the memories which filled that distance now seemed a gleaming ocean apart. She had turned 20 today and been promised away as a token to another esteemed family. Julia had been chosen for marriage far later than her fair sisters, and given for far less. Before long, she would be on the arduous journey to a backwater villa with no name lord she'd never met, all for the sake of her family name, or their wealth, so she thought. Julia glanced over the fine rosewood railing that lined the edge, then ran her hand gently along the weathered engravings. Age had not diminished the artistic qualities. Father demanded the finest from craftsmen, required it, even. Only the best for the Rivers family, since you're only worth what others can see. Twirling back towards the manor for one final look, Julia gripped the rail and hopped atop. This would be the final visit to her favorite little spot. Nothing stood between her and the long fall to the deep waters below. No sharp rocks or jagged edges with which to meet a sudden end. Just the smooth fall down into an open ocean. This wouldn't pose a problem for Julia, who cannot swim.
"The rivers who can't swim," her mother would sigh. "Not a drop of talent left for you after your siblings, is there?"
Maybe it's because I have so many, Julia often thought. Siblings, that is. Mother gave much love to each of her many brothers and sisters. What was left for Julia was spread as thin as air by the end of the day. Maybe it was because her hair was a different color from the rest of her kin, or because she never seemed to get anything right. But it was okay. Julia always forgave her mother. There was no one else to turn to if she didn't. Then a deep, sweet hum, accompanied by a low rumbling just below Julia's neck, rang forth. She reached down to grasp her necklace and felt the little stone resting at the end. Her 16th birthday gift from her grandmother. Julia's face winced in perplexity as the stone vibrated warm against her fingers. The magically blanketing sensation reminded her sorely of her grandmother. She had always been the embodiment of kindness. On the rare visit, she would take over Julia's study session and fill the time telling odd stories of adventure, a welcome reprieve from her father's tutoring. He cracked Julia's knuckles bloody with a wooden stick many nights if she gave incorrect answers in her lessons. He knew she'd be worth more if she took her education seriously. Julia lifted the stone to eye level, cocked her head, and examined the peculiar glow. In the years she had carried this trinket to commemorate her grandmother's passing, the stone had never acted as such. "A piece of a star," her grandmother would regale. "With each day that passes, this star will know your heart. And when the day comes that you need it most, your wish will be answered." Julia struggled against the idea. A wish. Not a night had ever passed that she could recall a dream or desire, let alone a wish. She loved her grandma, however, and when her grandmother passed soon after, Julia honored her by carrying that stone each day. The humming stone sang gracefully from her palm and began to rise. She lifted her chin in awe, eyes fixated on the gleaming orb. To her astonishment, her stomach began to sink. She was beset with envy. The stone defied the very gravity which had trapped her so long. Her voided feelings became a wavy wash of color without understanding, and despite this uncertainty, she knew she could now make her wish. And yet, no wish came to mind. She stared quietly and long at the beauty within the stone, thoughts afluster. Life had beaten into her that she had no talent, no plan, no future, and no wish to make. Her moment had arrived and nothing came. Not for her family, not for herself. The pressure of inaction rose like a crackling dam with each sorrowful second, and the unassuming star merely sang on. Every failure began to surface inside. Every painful night and horrid moment she had experienced diminished the wonder. This was just one more thing she could not do, and she would bear it no longer. Julia snatched the stone straight from the air and leaned backwards off the railing without another thought. No more dread. She had already been ready. Julia would take her empty wishes to whatever may lay beyond. Plummet turned to plunge, and the water swallowed her whole. Julia had hardly managed to close her eyes before the icy sea grew heated, and as she sank further, burning. The stone clutched tightly, seared her hands, and then dryness. Rather than water, she found that air filled her lungs rapidly. Her eyes flew wide open. "Julia!" yelled her father in the distance. She reflexively flinched as if his words were a gnarled bite. "Come, don't make me wait all evening. We all enjoy the new view, but it's time for study." He spoke sternly as ever, grabbed the cusps of his velvet vest, and turned with perfect posture down the pathway to the manor. Up and down, the railing beside her shone with fresh polish. Rosewood scent filled the air with citrus and a gentle floral mix. The frame stood taller than she remembered. Shavings of wood lay at her feet, and she reached down to scoop up a handful before a gust whisked the remnants over the cliffside, just as she had only a moment before. As if streaking light over a stormy sea sky, Julia realized that this moment was the first time she had ever stood at the overlook. The first day they had arrived at the manor. "Julia!" he yelled harshly now, commanding. "Come!" She felt her chest swell with what she still could not comprehend. The void inside was gone, and now only regret remained. That and something more. Far more. She looked to the cliff where she had just thrown everything away a moment before, and then back to her father. Then she ran. Julia raced on as fast as her legs allowed, and when she felt that her body might give out, she ignored the numbness. Her father's enraged voice carried away softer and softer as the distance increased. "Julia! Julia!" Over and over. Onward. Away from the cliffside, away from the manor, and away from the Rivers family. Beyond the gates and down into the roads unknown. Julia did not know what her wish was, but for the first time in her life, she knew what it wasn't.